Okay. Oh, we'll go back in our TED Talk poses. Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining this recording. Hi, we're so excited to be here. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for joining us. Yes, I'm Michelle. This is Clara.
Hi, I'm Clara. Nice to meet you all.
We are so excited because we are doing our first ever collab event. Woo! Good job. Good team. Yeah. Nailed it. You're welcome. So we're super excited to not only be doing our first collab event between Ladies at UX and Machine Learning UX, but this is our first event in the quote-unquote South Bay. Woo! Yeah! So thank you all so much for joining us. And we are so excited to be here at Parc, which is a leader in innovation for so many years. We were in one of the executive conference rooms earlier, and we're like, how many businesses did they decide on in this room? Like, what? This is so cool. So today we're going to be talking about human-machine collaboration with our wonderful speakers from Parc.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really quickly, what you can plan to expect today. So me and Clara will be doing a little intro, and then we have
Parc is going to do an intro, and then our speakers will talk.
Yep.
Q&A.
Then we'll be co-facilitating the Q&A just as well as we're co-facilitating this right now. You're welcome. We are going to be doing, if you haven't ever been to an ML+UX event before, we do our questions via Twitter. So be sure, if you're not already on the Wi-Fi, hey, the password and Wi-Fi is right here. So it's Parc Visitor, all lowercase.
Also
yeah. Everybody who's getting out their phones right now, yeah. I can't wait for my phone to buzz of everybody following me. Please be tweeting in your questions. Make sure you're tweeting them at ML+UXSF as well as Ladies at UXSF. So, hello, welcome. Wait, are we on the right side?
No, we have to. No, we are.
We are?
We're gonna do this very coordinated thing where you stand under a logo.
Hello. Does this work? Oh, I like this as my tech talk post, but sorry, we never really get auditoriums like this. It's nice, so we're both very, very getting excited about this. But hi, we are so excited to have you all here. So this is our first time ever doing a collab event.
Yes, or we've done them before. Oh, you mean like
our first time?
It's our first time.
Yeah.
But also Ladies UX just did one, I think 2 months ago.
Yeah.
But this is still pretty new, and it's first time in the South Bay, so we're really excited to be here.
Yeah, and just a little bit of background, Ladies at UX holds a special place in my heart. I used to be an organizer for Ladies at UX out in Austin, Texas, so really excited to work with y'all on this too.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell me a little bit about Ladies at UX?
I would love to.
But first, thank you, Parc. Oh my gosh, this venue's so cool. Yay!
Thank you.
Really, thank you so much to everyone who's made this possible, including Mary Carol, Susie. Oh my gosh, if you guys haven't met Susie, is Susie here? No? She's awesome. She'll be roaming around. She's very cool. Anna, Richelle, Francis, Shiwali, of course, all of our speakers. Luke for helping us. And also Joe in the back for doing all the AV stuff. So you're the real MVP. Thank you for recording this on behalf of all the people who are watching this later. But Clara, tell me a little bit about Ladies at UX.
Yes. So Ladies UX is both a global and a local effort. So we are here from Ladies UX San Francisco, which is fairly self-explanatory, but we're also in 55 cities around the world as part of Ladies UX Global. And Ladies UX was founded in 2013 in Manchester in the United Kingdom, and very quickly moved all over the UK and then all over Europe and then North America. And I think Austin was one of the first chapters in North America, so go Michelle. And I actually used to live in Boston, Massachusetts, where I founded a chapter out there about 5 years ago, and around the same time San Francisco was born. And we've been running monthly events ever since. So sometimes in these awesome collaborations, and sometimes doing things like learning how to UX, how to design, how to research, having panels from really fantastic designers and researchers and other UXers, and workshops. And we are open to people of all genders, so whoever you are absolutely welcome to attend, to speak, to host. So if you're interested in running an event to share cool things that you're doing, or answer questions, or just connect with other UXers, definitely come talk to me afterwards, or connect with us on social media. And actually with Global as well, we're always looking for people who are interested in what UX looks like around the world. If you're visiting from another city, there's a good chance there's a Ladies UX initiative somewhere near you.
There's a very good chance. There's a lot of chapters.
There are a lot of, I think there are 15,000 of us in the community around the world. So definitely connect with me afterwards if you're interested. We're on Twitter for Global as Ladies UX. And yeah, so definitely always looking for more people to collaborate with, people to actually help run the chapter, people to help run with Global. So come find me afterwards if you're interested.
Yeah, Cool, thank you so much. And I want to share a little bit about like the machine learning and UX meetup. For those of you who come to my meetups before or have seen me talk, you might already see these slides, but here they are again. So many times I get people coming up to me being like, Richelle, so cool, ML+UX, great. What? Those don't go together. Why? So how I like to explain it is we're interested in how data can inform and drive design decisions, but also how do we design in ways to get data for models that we don't have yet, also designing ways to make our algorithms more transparent for our end users, designing in ways that really put humans in the forefront of the machine learning models and like the types of things and experiences that we're actually thinking about, because ultimately in the end, data scientists and UX practitioners, we're all trying to design for people a lot of the times, most of the time. We're designing for people, people are our end product, we're trying to approach the same types of problems just from different methodologies. So I want to clarify too, UX is not just visual design. There's a lot of other types of UX, like interaction design, copywriting, VUI, voice user interface design. I do some of that on Alexa. And data, for all of you data scientists, we're like, what? So much data, what? So that's like, I'm lumping AI and machine learning, data science, statistical inference, like basic stats, all in there too. So we like to talk about a mix of these things too. And when these two fields come together, like we're gonna hear from our wonderful speakers in a second, they can create some really cool experiences. So here are some of my favorites, like from Pinterest and the Google keyboard with the autocomplete and Google Quick Draw Auto Draw. So these are machine learning powered experiences, but really thinking about what is the whole overall experience and like how do these fields come together to make a meaningful experience. We've had the fortune of collaborating with a bunch of really cool companies like Autodesk and Quid and SAP and smaller companies like Clara Labs and Noodle and Salesforce. I guess that's not a small company. And Kaggle and Google IDEO, all turtles. So here are some of you too can be a happy person like all of us in these photos. So we tend to host technical talks. So talks like this where we actually hear about practitioners in the field who are sharing their insights with us about how they approach machine learning and user experience together. So tonight we are really excited because we have a really awesome mix of like UX and AI folks who are going to be talking about the human-machine collaboration focus area here at Parc, which I'm particularly excited about because like we don't get too many companies that like work on a huge slew of different human AI kind of products together. So I'm excited to hear about all the cool stuff you all are going to talk about.
Yeah.
And we host events about once a month, mostly technical talks. We are aimed at creating a collaborative community to bring practitioners together. So I hope that you don't think, oh yes, when this event ends at 9, like this event is over. No, I hope you guys make a friend, and you guys go grab coffee and continue the conversation afterwards, because it's within those conversations that you actually learn so much more about the field, and hopefully you're talking to someone else who works in a totally different field than you. You might know of us from our Meetup group, so this is where you can find us. I always put this up because Meetup.com search is really not great. So I see a lot of nods. So if you work at Meetup, opportunity. So meetup.com/MLUXSF. But you can also find us on these other great channels. We are recording this tonight, and this will go up on our YouTube channel. So we have a bunch of other great talks up there, but bit.ly/MLUX YouTube. Or we do have a Twitter, so that's where we're going to be tweeting out tonight, some live tweets. Well, that's where you will also be tweeting your questions. So we do have a website too, which also has our code of conduct, and just by being here, you agree to our code of conduct, but we're not going to spend a lot of time here. We can't happen, all of our events between machine learning, UX, and Ladies at UX can happen without you. We need people who are doing cool, amazing things. We feel really, really lucky because Mary Carroll found us, and she's at Parc, and she was all like, oh, look at all these cool things that we do, and we want to talk to you about it. Yes, we need more people like that. What is Ladies at UX looking for?
Well, as I said earlier, we're always looking for co-organizers and people to partner with us, whether you want to just help us organize or have an event, or if you want to speak. And so we're always really excited to have volunteers from the audience who are coming afterwards and who are helping us plan our next event. And then, you know, whatever sounds good to you, we definitely want to hear about it.
Yeah, and if you are working in the intersection of these two fields, both of our groups would love to talk to you about the cool stuff you work on. We're also looking for sponsors. If you ever want to sponsor an event, both of us are also looking for events. We're more than happy to do another collab event if you want to host us. We also would love if people want to give talks. If you want to volunteer, you don't need any experience in ML or UX in order to volunteer with us. You're welcome. And if you're interested, you can contact us for ML+UXSF. It's humans at ML+UXSF, or the human side. And then San Francisco at ladies.ux.com, or also our Twitters too. So, because this is a meetup, and I know that you guys you've just spent a whole day at work, you're now very tired, but you're here to learn. But guess what? We're gonna make some friends. So I know you guys have already met someone too, but I hope you can turn to a partner really quickly, and we'll just take 2 minutes, just meet someone new. This could be your new friend that you go grab coffee with. Yeah, ready? Break.
That was good.
Dab. Okay.
Oh,
It's here. Yay.
oh my god. Is there somewhere in which I should go to see the live questions?
I will heart them, and so you can go to my likes.
Okay. I may need my iPad though, because I don't have my own. They got a great accent out of you. No, it's great.
Dabbing at another bit, and I'm like, I need to stop and dab. I picked it up because my little brother is dabbing, and he's like, oh, this is funny. And I'm like, yes, it's very funny, but now I do it in public. Yeah, okay, guys, hey, what up? My cough are all
Oh my god.
I feel like this is not the right sport. If the audience is only 20 years younger, okay, here we go.
Well, you know.
People are kind of hanging around, so. Hey! Hi, hi, hi.
Hello, everyone.
Maybe I should. Should I start flexing? What?
No.
Hi, y'all.
Like trying to signal at people.
Hey. Cool. Awesome. Well, I hope you guys got to meet someone. I know that was very brief, but we want to make sure that we get you out of here on time. So you could just say that you can just follow up with that person for coffee afterwards, right? Next week. Yeah. So now you can have a new friend to hang out with. So without further ado, we're going to turn it over to our sponsor, Parc. Actually to Anna, who's going to tell us a little bit about the history of Parc, why we're all here. We'll transition off stage, and then Luke's going to introduce our wonderful speaker. So give it up for Anna.
Woo!
Okay. Joe? Okay, good. Welcome. Wow, I was watching them, and their energy is off the chart. I was just telling them that I had a big lunch, so my level's a little bit down. So welcome to Parc. My name is Anna Anario, and I run events and marketing here at Parc. So we are very happy to be hosting Ladies at UX and ML+UX. Thank you for coming. So I was asked, okay, thanks. So I was asked to give the intro, and yeah, it's a building that has been here for nearly 50 years. Next year will be our 2020 50th anniversary, and we focus on open innovation. We first started here, next slide. We first started here 50 years ago, almost 50 years ago, as the R&D arm of Xerox. And they came in and said, let's make the office of the future. Let's make it, and they brought in several different types of researchers here. And through these walls, there were many things that you actually use today that we have worked on. So for example, the GUI, the WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get, was invented here. The Ethernet, laser printing, many of the things that you may not know. The Alto, the personal computer, was actually invented here and through these walls. So very, very exciting things that have happened. And people often wonder, oh, what are they doing today? Well, we're still inventing many things. So here's just a little bit of a timeline of things that we invented, or are inventing, continuing to invent. So Parc by the numbers, who are we? We are still part of Xerox today. We are one of the research centers. We have about 150 research scientists. That goes from hardware scientists to software scientists and the social scientists, some of the social scientists that you'll meet today. Who do they consist of? The social scientists can be ethnographers, anthropologists, all types of people that come in through the doors. And then also the technology. We have different types of portfolios and patents that are listed every single day. And then also the track record. So many different breakthrough innovations, which I mentioned before. And then also we have spin-offs. So for example, we have one specifically for sensors for autonomous vehicles that just spun off years ago. You may have heard of a company called Adobe that actually spun off. 3Com actually spun off of here as well. So pretty storied history here at Parc. So moving forward, what are the things that we're working on today? So we have actually 4 different labs. We have an AIL lab, Interaction and Analytics lab, which also does the intelligence assistance, and the machine learning lab, AI and machine learning, human-machine collaboration. We have the System Sciences lab, which is model-based reasoning, systems prognosis and health management. So predicting maintenance is something that we do. Then we have the EMDL lab. So the first 2 that I had mentioned, these are more of the social scientists that work here. The last 2 are more of our hardware scientists. So the electronics materials labs are optical technology. So what I mentioned before, the laser printing, as well as printed and flexible electronics and additive manufacturing. And then the hardware systems lab. So manufacturing deposition systems, as well as coding technologies and energy. So those are all types of different, it's very complex and a matrix organization. But there is actually one group, today's group that you'll meet today, that pulls all of this together. And it's actually our innovation services group. So you'll learn a little bit about how we pull these different groups together. And Luke Plurowski is the one who manages our innovation services group. So I'll let him say a few words.
Okay. Thanks, Anna. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight. It's great to see so many new faces, and I'm happy that we're able to host tonight. My name's Luke Plurkowski, and it's okay. And I'm the Director of Innovation Services here at Parc, and I run a team that consists of UX designers, UX researchers, social scientists, and we really try to bridge the gap between all of our labs and all of our capabilities and really try to drive innovation for our clients. And Xerox is a big client of ours, but we also work with a lot of outside companies today. We work with government partners, et cetera. So Parc's sweet spot is kind of at the intersection of UX research and design, deep technical research capabilities, which is most of Parc, and then also business strategy. And my team really tries to focus on the UX research and design piece and the business strategy piece when we engage with clients. We really try to focus on the most difficult, challenging problems that our clients need to be able to solve. Often that's creating a new business that doesn't exist today, or how to disrupt their core market, their core industry, so that they can continue to thrive and grow and be competitive in the market. My team is made up of folks who focus on the strategic analysis piece and working with our clients to identify and validate new business opportunities. We also have social science capabilities within the team to go out and study users and really understand user needs, users' objectives, and really probe to understand the viability of a particular problem solution set. And then we also have UX design and UX research to develop concepts, to do rapid prototyping, to do all the things that we need to do to help that client take a technical solution and get it to market. And the core methodology that we use that underpins a lot of the work that we do is we do experience or cultural probes. So we generate a lot of hypotheses throughout a project and iteratively go out and test those hypotheses with users. We'll create very low fidelity artifacts and things to try and trigger a response, and then based on that signal we can move forward and try to rapidly cut down the opportunity space and really focus on what is the best possible opportunity for that client. We match that with technical capabilities at Parc and elsewhere in the market, and then really try to drive innovation that way. One of the speakers today will talk to you about a product that we've recently launched on the market where we use this approach and help them successfully launch that platform. So I'll hand it back to Anna now.
So the Innovation Services Group works along all those different labs that I mentioned before. But all those different labs, if you take a look at the different focus areas that we're actually doing research on, research and development, it's these 6 focus areas. So we have the AI and human-machine collaboration, where you're actually looking at how machines are going to work better with computers. And then you also have the digital workplace. So we're working for different types of technology and how to communicate with our computers and machines. So intelligent assistance is, for example, one of them. And then we have novel printing. So that's one that's a very, many years, for 50 years, we've been working on different types of printing technology, especially printed sensors is one area. And then also IoT and machine intelligence. And then digital design and manufacturing. We're looking to disrupt the manufacturing industry, which is a bit slower to come into the digital world. And then microsystems and smart devices, which is also very important to Parc. So as you can see, we're not only working, we're very proud of our history, but then we're also working for what's happening today and what we're planning to do for the future, not just for tomorrow, but then far out for another 50 years. So one of the most famous quotes that we've had is a former scientist, Alan Kay, who said the best way to predict the future is to invent it. And still, this is something that all of the Parc research scientists holds dear, and we very much are looking to invent the future. So thank you again for coming.
Thank you, Anna. I'm going to briefly introduce all 3 speakers, and then they'll give their talks, and we'll do a panel Q&A afterwards. So our first speaker today is Frances Yan. She is an interdisciplinary designer and mechanical engineer with international experience collaborating with product designers and technologists. She has worked on multidisciplinary product development teams in the US, Asia, and Europe to create novel applications and services in healthcare, clean tech, and energy. Frances specializes in matching needs to technologies through an iterative and agile design approach grounded in human-centered design and 2D, 3D prototyping. Frances received a dual MA, MS in Innovation Design Engineering from the Royal College of Art and Imperial College London, and a Bachelor's in Science and Mechanical Engineering from UC Berkeley. She is a native San Franciscan and occasional experimental baker. Richelle Dumond is a UX designer and researcher in the Innovation Services Group. She works on a variety of projects ranging from healthcare solutions to the future of work, combining the novel technologies invented at Parc with human-centered insights. She co-chairs Parc's AI Ethics Review Committee that is the recipient of an AIJ grant promoting AI research. Before joining Parc, Richelle worked for Simon Dogger, a designer whose loss of sight hasn't stopped him from creating. As a volunteer at the Bureau of Fearless Ideas in Seattle, Richelle helped young humans to develop their creative and expository writing skills and staffed the Space Travel Supply Company. Richelle received the Louis G. Marsh Top Scholar Award in Design, with which she earned her Master of Design and Interaction Design from the University of Washington. She completed a Bachelor's of Design in Communication Design at the Design Academy Eindhoven in her native Netherlands. There was a lot of design in that sentence. Richelle can explain the difference between Holland and the Netherlands, occasionally misses, I don't know how to say these words, they're Dutch, and is thrilled when she receives a jar of Calve pindakaas sent to her by her parents. That was the best I could do. And our third speaker tonight is Shiwali Mohan. She is an AI researcher with an interest in the design of interactive communicative agents. Currently, she is working on adaptive agents for facilitating positive health behavior change and on knowledgeable representation and acquisition for task-driven dialogue agents. Her research spans artificial intelligence, agent design and learning, cognitive systems and architectures, and psycholinguistics. Shiwali earned her PhD from the University of Michigan's Computer Science and Engineering Department, where her thesis work focused on interactive learning for cognitive robots. She has a master's in computer science from the University of Michigan and a bachelor's in technology and instrumentation and control engineering from Delhi University in India. Shiwali loves to dance and is learning photography. So thank you all. I hope the talks are very exciting and that you enjoy them. First up is Francis.
What do you want? Minor technical issues.
You could just use the clicker to go over.
Oh, you're right. I didn't think about that.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm so glad all of you made it down here. I know it's not an easy track. But yeah, my name is Francis Yan. I'm a user experience designer and researcher in our innovation services group here at Parc. And tonight, I really like to tell you guys a little bit about what we do in ISG and some of our design processes and philosophies. So as you've already heard from Anna and Luke, our innovation services group is really the bridge between our commercial clients and the labs here at Parc that are developing these emerging technologies that our clients are looking to embed into their product and service offerings. So what that means when we're developing these very novel innovations is that it's high risk, high reward, but it also means that we're often designing things that don't quite exist yet. So, you know, there's very little precedent and very little best practices and inspiration to draw from. So we have to have a more unique user experience perspective when we're addressing these problems. So one of the first things I like to talk about today is acknowledging your bias. Design, and especially user experience design, is at a time where it's incredibly multidisciplinary, but it also often means that our roles are sometimes ill-defined or open to interpretation, but there's also room for us to make it what we want it to be. So it's, and as Luke mentioned, so I come from a background in mechanical engineering, and so my perspective of UX is probably different from many user experience designers and researchers today. But what I really want to get at here is that, you know, our unique perspectives and expertise, even though there are biases, there are also our strengths. So to talk a little bit about my personal example, when I was in undergrad learning engineering, it was incredibly theoretical and academic, and, you know, I learned how to build some pretty interesting things, but what I quickly realized was that I was much more interested in learning why and who we're building things for. And especially in technology today, it's so easy to say that, oh, because we can do this, why don't we just go build it? But maybe the question is, should we build it? And what are the human insights that actually should help dictate what we're building? Excuse me. So I found a fun little comic here. So again, design is about identifying those trade-offs and being able to prioritize, you know, what the user is asking for, but also merging that with the technologies available, because not necessarily, technology isn't necessarily because you can build it, you should go build it, but let's sort of meet in the middle here. All right, so to go into a little more detail about user experience at Parc, I'm kind of putting user in quotations here because, you know, Parc, as you've heard from Anna, has software labs, hardware labs, And in the context of user experience today, it is most oftentimes the connotation is in software. But at Parc, we're really kind of looking across several layers of touch points here. So on one hand, there's systems and operations. What is happening at the back end in order for your platforms, your service offerings to actually ensure that it's running at a certain quality or meeting certain user expectations. And therefore, how does that feed into the digital, the physical, the experiences? But from the user's perspective, what is happening emotionally, but also what's happening within their environment that actually might factor and influence some of their behaviors and motivations that we might not necessarily always think about immediately. So in ISG, we have a little thing called the Parc probe process. For those of you who are unfamiliar with it, probes are our way of experimenting with real-life artifacts and our version of a scientific method. So first, I want to say, probes aren't prototypes. So just to go through the list here for a bit, what we first start off with is when we receive a client brief, it usually entails, trying to find innovation in a very broad industry or opportunity, and it's really up to us to begin by observing the world, and we rely on a lot of qualitative research. We conduct a lot of ethnographic field work where we go out in the world and observe the state of life as it is today. What are people currently doing, and what are their pain points and frustrations that might actually inform opportunities for our concepts that we'd like to develop further with our clients. And so throughout this whole design process, we start with a series of hypotheses that are really aimed to try to validate and invalidate some of our assumptions or our thinking, and they're constantly changing throughout this very, very iterative process. And in order to actually physically test these hypotheses, we're often building these probes where they're a series of artifacts that simulate how a user might interact with a certain touch point within a process or system. And that's usually deployed over a period of time, or it might be during a one-on-one interview. And again, it's an iterative process, so we're just repeating this as often as we can. And so that when we finally can go to our client, these our insights and our concepts are informed by real-life people who have been able to put themselves in this world that we are trying to create for them. And just to show you some examples, our design mentors in ISG have been very great at inspiring us to look more holistically and trying to imbue more service design into our research and design process. So breaking down user journeys and decoupling it so that we're looking at not just what the user is interacting with at the front end, but also what is happening backstage that they might not always see. So that's where we kind of dig into the systems and operations that our clients might need to think more about when they're building their business and offering. And secondly, another version of that is looking more broadly at ecosystems. So outlining user interactions, where are they happening? Are those interactions digital, experiential, or physical? So we can sort of get a better picture of what actually is framing the user's life and how it relates to our client's system. And lastly, what I really wanted to drive home here is the concept of use context. So when a user is interacting with whether it's your product or service, whatever it may be, what else in their lives are they thinking about in that moment that might influence their behaviors or their actions? Numbers do great at telling us what user actions are, but they don't necessarily always give us enough context in terms of why they're making those decisions. And just a quick little case study I just wanted to share with you guys here is is the Png la Skin Advisor. A few years ago, Png came to Parc looking to drive digital transformation. And they really wanted to interact more directly with their, with, I guess, digital natives, if we can call them that. Well, people who are, very more practiced with technology. And so Png, they have obviously a very successful consumables business, but, when people are, in this case, women, when they're purchasing skincare products in the store, they're often faced with, a giant shelf of products. Do you know, like, what's good for my skin? What do I actually need? So Parc, machine learning experts and social scientists kind of banded together to sort of address this problem and try to find opportunity within it. So what we actually were able to put together was this digital skin analysis platform that was devoid of any hardware. So all you have to do is take a selfie, and this deep learning algorithm will actually conduct a very detailed analysis of your skin characteristics based on that photo. And the results include a series of a recommended product regimen that is really grounded in some hard science. So pretty interesting, but there are a few things we kind of needed to think through. I've talked a bit about how a lot of these, I guess in this case, customers, they're making product purchasing decisions at the store, but does it really make sense to ask people to stand in a store, take a selfie, and wait for an algorithm to run? Not necessarily. So we have to think about different types of flows. So what is happening in the store, what is happening at home? And perhaps at home is the time when they actually, have the time and I guess leisure to sort of look into an in-depth report of their skin qualities and be able to make a more informed decision before they even go to the store. So just one of those instances where we realize that a one-size-fits-all flow doesn't necessarily make sense. But then looking a little bit deeper at the machine learning data set itself, obviously this is still a relatively early stage development, and what we actually realized pretty quickly was that it might not have been the most diverse set of images that we had trained on. So that actually has quite a lot of impact in terms of the results that people were getting. And so in this case, did we account for race, diversity, and a lot of other things? So what was the, what was the algorithm not trained on, but also what were the limitations of the data sets that they have? And so something else to think about as we move forward with development of this, product service platform was that is there a way for our users to actually provide feedback to the algorithm itself? And that's kind of what we kind of mean when we talk about human-machine collaboration here at Parc. I think it's one thing for an algorithm or an artificial intelligence to suggest the best course of action, but when it comes to, but it should also enable asking for human input as to, is this actually reducing the bias that the AI might have itself simply because of the data that it was trained on. And so to close the loop here a little bit, anyway. So to close the loop, when it comes to designing for things that we might not necessarily know what to expect, let's broaden our horizons a little bit, but also take advantage of what we're each individually bringing to the table, because when you're designing for the unknown, you don't necessarily have a clear direction of where you're going from. So looking back and thinking holistically to design across all touch points and making informed decisions that's informed by both context and data is incredibly important here. And so thanks you all for coming here to listen to us speak today. And I will pass this along to Richelle.
Hi. So I'm Richelle Dumond. I am a UX researcher here at Parc. I'm originally from the Netherlands, and I moved to the US about 3.5 years ago to pursue my master's degree in interaction design at the University of Washington. I'm really excited to be here, a little nervous, but we're going to get through it together. So I'm going to talk to you today about the AI Ethics Review Committee that we've been setting up here at Parc. And as you've maybe seen the news, you might have come across because this is a decent event, sorry, pre-orchestrated jokes, love those. Okay, so as you might have, paid some attention to the news, you might have come across any of these headlines and probably more. And some of you might even work at the companies that are being mentioned here. So that brings me to the topic of who here knows what an IRB is? Okay, oh, that's nice. Okay, so keep them raised. Who here then knows if the company that they work for has an IRB? If you know if it has one? I'm seeing here, maybe the person here in the back can explain what the IRB does? Yeah? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, so the IRB stands for the Institutional Review Board. It is the board that oversees any research that has human subjects. And the IRB has the power to approve research that has human subjects. It has the power to request modifications in this research, or it has the power to reject a research based on problematics that might arise. And they basically look, as indeed with the European regulations, as well as here in the US, they look to make sure that the welfare of the human subjects is safeguarded, their privacy and their rights. So based on that, I'm gonna guess that you can guess sort of what an AI Ethics Review Committee would be about. And I'm happy about that because that's what I want to talk to you about today. So I've been at Parc almost 1.5 years, and about a year ago, we set up with a small group of employees, we started this initiative because we saw these risks happening, and we wanted to make sure that we would be preventing any of biases in our work, unduly trust in technology, and also that there was not going to be any nefarious outcomes or plans that might be taken away with the design that we were making here. And so we've based this ethics review committee, or AI ethics review committee, we've based that on our Parc's IRB. And with this committee, we try to mitigate any unforeseen risks or outcomes or consequences from these systems that we develop here. And as a minimum, at least try to mitigate those. If we cannot avoid them, then we try to mitigate these risks. Yeah. So together with the project teams, we really try to work through the project and to come to basically a best practice together as an outcome. And we see the need for this ethics review committee because, just like everywhere else around us, all the tech companies around us, we have an increase in projects that involve AI. And we want to be able to make sure that, that we are ahead and prevent things like this from happening. So besides reviewing projects that are coming up, we also want to make sure that we educate, train, and consult, not just within Parc, but our larger tech community that we have around us. And with this, we basically want to make sure that teams start to see the value of implementing ethics through the development of their design and not just as a taxation that comes afterwards. And yeah, so we see this, we have some methodologies for this, and I'll walk you through that in a bit. And as an added goal, as part of this effort, we see the need that there needs to be more diversity in the teams that design these systems. And that's, of course, we talk about race and gender, but when we talk about true diversity, that also means in gender identity, it means in education level, it means in technical literacy, age, country of origin, religion, you name it. It needs to be a diverse team because it helps us to have really easily access to different type of lenses. And so it's easier for somebody to ring the bell to say, hey, I'm having some problems with this design because I have this lived experience. So when you have a diverse team, you have such easy access to this tremendous resource right at your fingertips. So we're trying to promote more diversity within Parc as well as other teams. I have a beautiful PowerPoint diagram here, which shows a very, very broad overview of how we see this, the life cycle of this review. And what we basically have done is made sure that there were check-ins before the project starts, during, and after. And this is us. We're very small at the moment, but this is because it is a grassroots effort from the people here within Parc. So we are Kyle, Nick, and myself, and we are aiming on growing because, like I said, Parc is getting more and more AI projects, but we also want to be able to, that we can give our clients who might not have a similar board or committee the chance to make use of our services, basically. And yeah, so I'll walk you through the process that we've done so far, or the work that we've worked on for the past year. So we designed the committee and the framework for how to go through an ethical review. This is part of the checklist that we ask projects to fill in. Basically, it's sort of like the same as with an IRB, that as soon as a question is being answered with yes, that means that the project's being sent to us for a review. We worked on process documentation, which is all available online because we want to make sure that it's spread far. And yeah, so we worked on the documentation. We wrote our statement of purpose, guidelines, the processes on how this ethical review is gonna go through. And then we did the project that Francis mentioned earlier. We did sort of a dry run. This project was done already, so it was sort of like a nice hindsight 2020, what this would have looked like. This is a project that is a great example for something that would have triggered the involvement of the AI Ethics Committee in the future. And this really helped us to fine-tune any of the guidelines, the questions that we were asking, etc. Then we received funding from the AI Journal to set up workshops. So that other companies who might want to set up a similar AI ethics review committee are not needing to start from scratch. And we have a paper accepted in Temps de Décennie, which is focusing on how you can systematically apply ethics when using AI as a design material. So we're not alone in this area. There's a lot of efforts already being done, and that's awesome because we don't want to be alone in this, because we really see that this getting these ethics implemented in AI practices is a joint effort. So it either needs to be top-down, bottom-up, sideways, however we can get these things into our development, we want to have it. So these are just a very small grasp of some examples. There's some top-down, which is governmental efforts being done on guidelines, etc., and toolkits. There's some commercial efforts like Google and Microsoft set up their guidelines. And then there's a lot of grassroots efforts in making sure as a bottom-up part of, sorry, losing the train of thought here, that these guidelines are being reviewed, etc. So how we see that we are different in this is that a lot of the guidelines are just that. They're guidelines, it's a piece of advice, it's an idea, and we want to be able to prevent that from happening with this review committee. So we're not just a set of guidelines, we try to actively work with the project teams to basically, because we believe that, you know, ethical questions are never as black and white. It's sort of this gray area that we have to navigate. It's, you know, it's like a fluid moral landscape that you're going through, and it's not just a set of, well, we think this, this, and this, and here you go, and, you know, go on and make your project. So we really try to work together with the teams to work through these things. And I have some final thoughts for you, which is go rogue. We did it. We just decided with a small group of researchers here to like, hey, you know, this is really an issue. Let's come together, meet once a week for an hour, see what we can come up with. And that means that you can do this too. And don't be worried, because we're here to help. Because we got funding to set up workshops around this topic. So we're in the process now of developing those, and I would ask you to keep an eye on the parc.com/blog so that you can come and join us for these workshops if you're interested in setting something similar up for yourself. And I hope to see you there. So yeah, thank you.
Right, so hello everyone, my name is Shiwali Mohan, and Francis and Richelle sort of represent the Innovation Services Group here at Parc. I am a member of research staff, so it's one of the more technical labs. So the lab that I work for is called Interaction and Analytics Lab, and the lab sort of focuses on human-machine collaboration, human-agent interaction type areas, and hopefully I'll give a flavor of what we do in this talk. So I thought I would start with a little bit about my background so that you get a perspective of why I think of the world in the way I do. So I'm an AI researcher. My graduate school and training has been in computer science. And so I focus mostly on algorithms and engineering and computation. But the lab that I got my PhD from, the SOAR lab at University of Michigan, the goal of the lab was to design human-level intelligence systems. So we were looking at how humans solve different kinds of problems, how do humans learn about their world, and can we design AI agents and architectures that are sort of similar? And because we were studying humans to design AI, I got the front row view of what human factors, human-centered research looks like. And I'm greatly inspired, and I hope that I'm able to bring those insights back into computation and AI and machine learning and make these technologies more human accessible. So my dissertation work was in human-robot interaction, where I built a robot called Rosie, and that's why Rosie the robot riveter. And so the goal of the project was to design AI that can learn from humans through natural interaction. So we were looking at how can you talk to agents just like you would talk to a child and teach those agents new things. And so that research work helped kickstart a new field called interactive task learning, which is a collection of algorithms and training methods that allow humans to naturally interact with agents and program new behaviors in them. I've been at Parc since November 2014, and it's been a really exciting experience to be at Parc because it helped me sort of craft this interdisciplinary research agenda where I could focus on computation, but it could still have this awesome human bent to it. And Parc has this history of doing a lot of human-centered work, and that just keeps it exciting. And the other thing sort of I find really exciting about Parc is it sort of straddles this fine line between an academic research lab and full industry, right? So you can do fundamental theoretical research, but then the focus is on how can we deploy these technologies to people so we are able to study how these technologies actually impact people's lives. And one thing that I'm super excited about, and I hope that my work would have big impact on, is AI for social good. There's like so much scare tactic that goes around in the world, which is like AI will take away all our jobs, AI will lead to autonomous killing machines. But I think AI has tremendous potential to actually impact our lives for the better. And we all, as a community, should have that goal explicitly defined for us so that we can move towards that direction where we are actually making our world better. So when I was this is sort of like I have never really interacted with UX audience before. So when I was asked to do this talk, I went and sort of started looking at how do people think about people and AI and machine learning methods. And this, I think, is sort of the overall sort of perspective on how this is supposed to be. So you collect user data. So it's like, where are your users looking at, what web pages, what kinds of links they are clicking, what are they sharing over social media and things like that. And then you pick your favorite machine learning algorithm. So deep learning is really hot right now, so you pick some really fancy deep learning algorithm. And what you're trying to do is to generate a consumer profile. You're trying to distill down your user's behavior into this thing that you can now sort of drive some inference on. So you looked at a lot of cat pictures, so you are a cat lover, right? And then we want to generate some recommendations for you. So if you are Amazon, you want to probably show cat food products. Or if you are a news channel, you might want to show news items about cats. And as we said, it's like, can we build more AI into it? It's always like, can we collect even more data about people? And then can we do even cooler machine learning? But the cycle sort of remains constant, that all we are trying to do is to boil a person's personality or their behaviors down into a profile and then generate some recommendations for them. So to me, that sort of seems like a very bleak view of what AI and humans should be like. So this is really short-term engagement. Once you reach to a recommendation, you are done with that person. There's no insight on why they're doing the things that they are doing. And this is very macro-level personalization, right? You're trying to bin people into groups, and so that those groups of people will then look at the things that you're interested in having them look. So you want more ads, you want more page views, you want more click-through rates. None of it is about what the person is actually trying to do. Right? So I was like, why is this the case? Why are we sort of stuck into this loop? And the answer, coming from the AI perspective of things for me, is there's this big sort of simplifying lens that we look at AI from. So we say there's this sort of perception that all AI is actually machine learning. And then all machine learning is classification, where you're trying to boil down user behavior to customer profile, right? But this is actually not the case. So this is a screen so this is from the book, Artificial Intelligence, A Modern Approach, Russell and Norvig. And this is a standard reference book for AI graduate students. And this book has over 28 chapters each chapter has several sections. And together, they have over 100 algorithms. So AI is not just this one thing. It's actually a collection of a vast variety of intelligent algorithms. And it will start from knowledge representation and reasoning, logical inference and computation. It does include machine learning a little bit, but it's a small part of it. The full AI gamut is a big class of algorithms. So what we're trying to do at Parc is to actually try to bring that full force AI into really hard problems, right? So we want to build systems that can coach people to live healthier lives, like with more exercise, eating better. We want to build systems that can assist people make sustainable choices so that our planet is getting healthier. And to me, learning new things is the essence of humanity. So we all want to learn. For example, I love to dance, and I am always looking for new kinds of dancing techniques that I could learn. And so I want to be able to design systems that can help people learn new things. So this is very different from what the classical view is. And the reason is that first we want continual engagement. So the engagement can't just stop at showing a recommendation. You actually have to, if someone is trying to learn, it happens over a longer period of time. So you actually have to track them over the longer period of time. The second thing is we want micro-level personalization. So not everyone learns in the same way or will want to achieve the same goal. So we want to be able to adapt our methods to this one specific person that we are trying to work with. And so we want this very micro-level personalization. And because we are only looking at specific people, there's very small data available to learn from. So none of the big data deep learning methods would actually apply. We have to be smarter with sort of how to use the scarce data to do really good. And then finally, this is something else. We want the AIs to have humanistic goals. We want to build systems that support humans in things that humans want to do, and not just increase page views or click-through rates or ad revenue. So how are we thinking about it? So this is sort of an overall vision that we have at Parc. So a human is involved in doing a task, right? So it could be something like a person is trying to build a habit of doing exercise every day, right? So the first thing is you want to sense how they're performing that behavior. So it could be that they had thought that they would walk for 15 minutes this evening, but they didn't do it, right? So that's the sensing interaction problem. From that sensing interaction, you might want to go to a computational sort of representation of what they did, so that our AI algorithms can come into picture and reason about the behavior, right? And sort of the models that we are thinking about building are causal models. So it's not like we're just trying to predict who will walk how many minutes. We are actually trying to understand if someone doesn't take a walk, why is it that they're not trying? Why did that happen, right? There could be multiple reasons for it. It could be that, well, they went back home, they clicked on their TV, and they just completely forgot about this thing that they had thought they would do. Or it could be that they don't believe that they can actually do that exercise that was recommended for them, and so that's why they're unlikely to do it. So we want these causal models so that we are able to sort of distinguish. You had a question? Yeah. What is the measurement model? Sorry? So the measurement model goes from, so you could have sort of a conversational agent, right? So you're maybe trying to talk to it. So it goes from a natural interaction that a human might want to have to a computational representation that the algorithms can reason with, right? So humans understand a different type of information. Algorithms understand a very different type of information. So you have to continually do this translation back and forth so that the algorithms and humans are able to talk to each other in a way that makes sense. So the measurement model will go from information that humans understand to information that computers understand. So going back to the causal model, so you need to be able to identify why someone did or didn't do a behavior. And once you can identify that, you can then start working on that specific thing. So it sort of brings in a lot of knowledge from human sciences like behavioral economics, cognitive modeling, cognitive psychology, and then brings in AI and machine learning algorithms that can operate over those models to do some reasoning. So once you figured out, hey, this person sort of forgets to do the exercise because they're too into Game of Thrones, you can then come up with an intervention strategy to then remind them of it. So maybe just before HBO releases the latest episode, you would just like give them a phone call and, hey, stop there, go back to your exercise or something like that, right? So there's this, and once you do this intervention, then you again have to monitor if they're doing the thing that you're wanting them to do. And so this sort of is a holistic picture. We're actually reasoning about the human. We care about what they're doing. And we really want to help them get where they want to do instead of just doing page views or other such things. So the purple part is sort of the AI system design part. But the green part is the UX design part. Like, how do we keep these interactions natural? So that people are actually engaging with the AI agent. Usually what happens is when you deploy AI agents, the interactions are so stilted that no one really wants to interact with them. So a lot of the user experience research comes from, for this type of system, will come from how do you make this more natural. So I was just going to run through some case studies that we have done. So I'm super excited because we have tried to build these systems out and deploy them in different domains and actually have seen impact. So the first one we did was for health behavior coaching, and this was done in collaboration with University of Washington, Seattle. And the funding was among Xerox, Kaiser Permanente, and National Science Foundation. So like I said, Parc is a great place to do foundational research and then translate it into like actual prototypes. And so we find that we can always excite like industry as well as government to invest into the kinds of things we're doing. So here we built different types of coaching agents that were aimed at getting people to walk more, getting them to eat better, and we incorporated a lot of human science understanding, like theory of planned behavior, human memory models into our AI algorithms. And then we actually did deployments where we engaged with a person over 4 to 6 weeks, and then show that with this continual engagement, people actually change their behavior. And then one big insight we had from this was that if you have collaborative goal setting where the AI sort of proposes a goal to the person and then the person can say if they want to pursue that goal or not. So that kind of collaboration actually leads to better results than AI just trying to force something on people. So that's the other one, like more human-centered, human-aware AI where we are constantly negotiating with the person because we ultimately want them to get better and not really stop using the system. And so this is sort of an example of interdisciplinary impact for me. So we have publications in medical conferences and journals, AI conferences, and even at CI. So this is like sort of trying to have a wide impact. And this, to me at least, tells that we are on the right track with the kind of approach we are following. The second one was a similar thing, but we did this for transportation behavior influence. So ARPA-E had this program where they wanted to build a technology that can help large cities reduce their energy consumption by 10%. So they were very interested in dealing with Los Angeles's transportation problem. So we developed a project for that. And here we invoked a model from behavioral economics called utility-based choice theory, which tries to build a predictive model of why people take certain kinds of decisions and what can be changed about their context so that their decisions would change. So here we ran some choice experiments. So this one wasn't a fully deployed application, but we did certain kinds of experiments with AI, and we were able to show that if we can make the sustainable transportation recommendations very contextual and personalized to each specific person's context, they are much more likely to change their behavior towards sustainable transportation. This one is a super exciting project that I'm currently involved with, and this is the one where we are trying to develop systems that aid human learning. So right now we are focusing on physical tasks like trying to put together IKEA furniture, or trying to fix your car, or trying to maintain Xerox's printers, because that's who we are getting funding from right now. And so what this project is an augmented reality embodiment. So you wear something like an HoloLens, and you're looking at your task, and you're trying to put things together. And the agent that's built into that embodiment is following along what you're trying to do, and can infer things not only about the task, but also about you, and then adapts its intervention based on your performance as well as your goals for what you want to learn. So for this, we are building next generation conversational systems. So I'm sure all of you are familiar with things like Alexa and Google Home. And they're very focused on just the conversational language parts of it. Here we are able to sort of integrate a person's actual context in which they're doing the task through computer vision technology into the conversational system. So you don't always have to talk to it, but as you are doing things, it follows you along. So this is sort of still early stage. We have had some HCI type publications, but I expect once we build this thing out, we are going to have big impact on AI research as well as educational technology. So wrapping up, in late 80s and the 90s and the early 90s, sort of computers came out of academic government labs and started becoming technology that people can use. So at that time, Parc did pioneering work in human-computer interaction. I don't know how many people know this book, but this is sort of standard in HCI. And Card, Moran, and Newell were at Parc when they did this work. And now I think the same is true for AI. AI has come out of academic government labs and is now being integrated into our society. And so we are extending the legacy to AI now, and we are trying to build this new holistic view of AI and humans, and this is something we call human-aware AI systems, where there's explicit reasoning about the human that you're dealing with, and the goals of the AI are aligned with the goals a human might have about their own lives. This is a big interdisciplinary effort. We get influenced by a lot of research in human sciences like economics, psychology. It's big AI effort and UX. And finally, I want to stress the AI for social good part out. I think that should be an explicit research agenda for everyone, where we are trying to build technology that's making our world better instead of killing war-raging machines. Thank you.
To move into our Q&A, if our panelists would like to join us, can you switch back to the Google slides? Yes. Weren't those good talks? Did you guys learn something? I learned a lot. Those are really good cases. Also, I saw a couple of you are following along too. We've been live tweeting as well, so I'm trying to do summaries. Yeah, that one. The one with all the acronyms. A lot of consonant UX tonight, huh? Okay. Ooh, we might just like skip all the way to the end, huh? No, okay. Yeah, we did that. Nice, solid. Okay. So just a little bit of an overview about like what to expect. Our goals in collaborating for today are really to share best practices that you can take back to your team tomorrow. I would love it if all of you went to your team stand up tomorrow and were like, oh my gosh, I just saw the coolest talk. I cannot wait to share with you all. We should totally be doing this. So We also really want to, you guys have done an awesome job sharing your case studies about how these two fields come together, and how you approach innovation. That's another thing that we're super stoked about. Suppose I can sit over there and join you, the clickers over here.
Oh,
Does it still
no.
work? Oh, yes, it
Yeah.
does. Okay. There's water over here.
Yeah,
Okay.
got it here.
Perfect.
Do you-
Wonderful. This is much more natural, right?
Yeah, I have my bottle.
Awesome. So our goal is for you all to have a really, really strong understanding of not only of what these wonderful 3 speakers have shared with us, but hopefully be excited and actually have tangible things you can take back to your team tomorrow. So in order to do that, we want to keep the questions moving along. I know we're a little bit short on time, so we do have a couple of prepared questions for our speakers. And while we're asking those, you can tweet at ML+UXSF is the one that I'm going to be monitoring, as well as ladies@UX_SF. That's how we're going to be doing the Twitter. Yeah, it's us. Hi, we're doing it. Also, this is us,
Yeah.
all of us. So cool. I think we can get started.
Yeah.
Do you want to ask the first
I
question?
will. I'm going to use my iPad because that's how we're going to do this today. All right, so we have some great questions for all of you. First of all, thank you so much for speaking, for telling us about the work you're doing, and for the fantastic case studies. I learned a ton. I know Michelle did, and I think a lot of our audience did, so really appreciate you taking the time. Okay, so the first question is for all of you, but I'm particularly interested in Francis' response. There are many different types of UX design in the world today. How does Parc focus its design practice?
Yeah, great question. So I alluded to, I guess, a lot of this in my talk earlier already, but because Parc has such a unique blend of having to embed both hardware and software for our clients' businesses, it's a lot of it is requiring to look more broadly at the bigger picture and how these different types of systems are actually interacting with one another. For example, if one of the hardware labs is developing a sensor, where is the sensor placed, but also what kind of dashboard accompanies that sensor is also just as important. So in that case, you're kind of looking at, okay, who is installing the sensor, where is it being placed, what environments is it being used, but also when it comes to, say, if it's sensors for facilities management, what does a facilities manager might actually need to know. And so in that case, the type of sensor and what it's actually measuring is equally important. And so there's a lot of, I guess, different pieces of the giant jigsaw puzzle that we kind of need to consider. And so that's kind of why I think Parc's flavor of UX is actually quite unique in that it's needing to look a bit more broadly, but also because a lot of what we're doing is also so early stage, it's each iteration can actually have quite a big leap from one to another, and so which is why it's also kind of super interesting, because you can start from scratch, but where you can actually end up quite far, which is really good fun.
Yeah.
That's great.
And I think, Shiwali, you put it so great about Parc is like a research place where you can do fun research, but it also influences product. So I know that there's a ton of scientists running around here doing a bunch of really cool stuff. How does design and science actually work together, and research all in one?
I guess I'll take it. So there are different stages how this process happens. Most of the work that I showed was really basic, foundational, so it was funded by the government in different forms. So we had ARPA-E, National Science Foundation, so government is really interested in solving the hard, basic questions, but once we have sort of a good idea, it doesn't really happen with all projects, right? Yeah. Most research will end in failure, that's the nature of research, but once we find that sort of nougat, then it's we want to engage with other commercial partners who might be interested in taking what was developed at Parc in this basic research to the market. And so there have been instances at Parc, so we have had so the Png project Francis talked about, the deep learning algorithms probably were invented as part of basic research technology, but once we found a partner to take it to market with, we then collaborated with them, involved the user experience designers, and then brought this forward. Yeah.
Is there anything else, from the design side, how do you all work with the scientists as well?
Go ahead.
Both answer at the same
Well,
time.
feel free to chime in. So yeah, Richelle and I actually worked on a project together last year, and so it was, again, I guess I have a lot of hardware examples, biases, right? So we were working with a pharmaceutical company, and they had actually been interacting quite a lot with one of our hardware labs who developed a very novel and interesting way of spraying fluids that are actually quite hard to spray via traditional methods. And so this pharmaceutical company came to us and said, we'd really like to use it as a form of eye spray. So basically trying to completely rethink how eye drops, or I guess ocular drug delivery, is delivered nowadays. And so we actually had quite a good collaboration with the hardware team in that, they had figured out all the mechanisms that needed to go inside this system, but from a design perspective, we actually had to come in and actually figure out what were all the design and feature requirements that had to wrap around all these mechanisms. So looking at cleaning methods became super important, because when you're suffering from dry eye, you want to make sure the products you're using are sterilized. But also form factor and ergonomics come into play, and we got to work with some really great industrial designers in our group. And what else am I missing? There's also, but yeah, just like overall device maintenance, and again, what are the use cases in which they might actually want to use eye drops? Are they out on a hike? Are they sitting at home? And for a lot of people, eye drops are so awkward to use right now. It's like they actually want to be in a private space, but because this device kind of allows them to almost administer anywhere, because it is so much more simple, it was quite mind-blowing for a lot of people. And so it's really one of my favorite cases to explain how we can work so closely with the hardware team, and that design actually kind of informed where they needed to go within hardware development, because then sizing also matters, and how small can you get it to be, but there's a point where it's too small and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think you put it so beautifully too, about think about the entire ecosystem in which this product lives. You're not designing things that are in a vacuum. Even if it is basic research, ultimately there's going to be end people using it, and when are they using it, why are they using it? And you even talked about that on your ethics research board too, which I think is so, so cool.
It's actually gone really smooth. I'm wondering, not because I want, well, maybe because I'm but no, I think challenges are within, if I can just focus only on our group. So we have a group that consists of designers from all type of backgrounds, social scientists, and we love to dream, I guess. So we have these, we can make this design, and it's gonna, and we come up with all these prototypes or ideas, etc. And then once you actually have to work with the real world, is but we can actually manufacture this, or that's not looking like what we are hoping it would look like, or nobody's going to use this, or and I think the device that was just mentioned, it's a good example of where we would inform, this, nobody's going to use it in this current shape, so let's look at what we can design together. And I don't think that's necessarily I think it's maybe a bit of a a struggle together, but it's not like a total full stop on the project, and we have to review and everything. But it's definitely interesting where you have this research where you can go all out and dream and go big, and then you sort of have to bring it back to and I think that's maybe the best example of what
is quite rough.
Yes, yeah.
Well, it's part of the design thinking process, right? You must diverge before you conquer. Constraints allow you to make the really cool products that you make today.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Oh,
that's great.
Smile at the camera. Cool. So I I think we will ask one more prepared question, and then we'll move to some of the audience questions. So I see some really great questions coming in, so be sure you get in your questions, and you guys can stick around for a little bit after too. Sure. Okay, cool. So don't worry if we don't get to all your questions, you can come ask them after. So all of you have such interesting backgrounds. I think that's one of the things that I was most excited about. You all come from really cool different fields. How do you feel like your background has helped you be this awesome interdisciplinary player here at Parc and has helped you on the products that you've worked on?
Which way are you going?
All of you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. I guess I'll start. So for me, having sort of started in an engineering field that was very academic, and it's about like what can you build, and for like going into transitioning into design and trying to be more pie in the sky was hard for me. Like I'll be the first to admit I'm not the most creative designer, but I think my I guess sort of hybrid background has been really helpful in that. On one hand, when I can sort of think a bit more broadly than maybe a traditional engineer would, but when it comes to working with my peers in design, especially during grad school, I was kind of the voice to like, let's kind of bring this down to earth a little bit. So it's been helpful in sort of being that bridge between these two worlds, in which it's trying to finding a balance between being creative to the point where it might not be as feasible to try to think outside the box a little bit.
That's cool, and I love that you can bring in your mechanical engineering background to all the cool things that you're working on too. Also, sorry if I'm looking down at my phone, I'm seeing all the great questions come in too, so
yeah, we're going
how
through.
to combine them too. Yeah. Awesome. Richelle?
Yeah. So I think my graduate work relates the most to this, which is I guess during my undergrad already, I started accidentally focusing on creative activism, and that.
What is creative activism?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about it?
It's basically ways where activists try to find novel ways of getting their point across. During I was an intern for the Yes Men, who make like these mockumentaries and pretend to be people that they're not. I think especially during my undergrad, I was having some trouble in like seeing that there was a place for that. And then during my graduate study, I sometimes felt, oh no, there is a place. And then, I feel like that's part of being a graduate student. Yeah. Sometimes being, oh God, where would I fit in the world? But while working with all these activists in Seattle, I basically came to the conclusion, like, God, people are just so interesting. People are so tremendously interesting. And as soon as you talk long enough with somebody, you will find something. Either you can relate to each other. You start to form empathy and really understand. I mean, not always necessarily their lived experiences, but the passion that they feel for certain things. Or and I feel like I had this epiphany of like, wait, this is what I want to do as part of my job. And that's sort of how I rolled into, there's a whole field of UX research where I can talk to people constantly and talk about their experiences and their needs. And so I feel like I made a little bit of a weird loop, not knowing exactly that there was a place for that, but ended up in and then Parc is such an amazing spot for that, where we have these these awesome inventions that are being done, and we can just be part of that. So it's really.
And even like your experience doing like that type of work too in grad school can help inform the types of stuff you're doing now on the AI ethics board and stuff too.
Yeah.
Like, hey, how do we design new interventions in order to get our point across, and design engagements and everything too, which I think is so cool.
Yeah,
Something that
yeah.
we should all be looking to do in different ways.
Yes,
So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
what about you, Shivali?
So my answer is going to sound very similar to Francis's. So I started in control engineering, and I don't know if people know what it is. It's really drab mathematics. And I'm pretty good at it, but as I kept on doing it for 4 years, I realized that it wasn't really super exciting for me. So when I started looking at grad schools, I was looking at programs that had algorithmics, but then they were being inspired by how humans think and reason about their world. So those were the sort of AI programs 10 years ago were mostly driven by how humans sort of reason and think about their world. So I joined University of Michigan, got trained in some cognitive psychology, and found it super interesting. And then I came at Parc, and I realized, so at grad school we were doing cognitive science because we wanted to build AI systems that were similar to humans, right? So we wanted them like as flexible, problem solving, quick learning type systems. But when I came to Parc, I realized that AI as a tool can be then used to really help people as well. And so Parc sort of helped me see this other side of things where like human was in the center. Like for most of my grad school career, AI was at the center, but then coming to Parc, humans did become the center. And so now a lot of my thinking has been around, well, if we know this much about how humans think and reason and feel, can we use AI to augment that to sort of get to a better place, collaborative space?
Yeah, I love how you brought that up in your talk too about like, hey, like people are at the center of the types of stuff that I do, and like even though you're building all these really cool cutting edge machine learning models and stuff, like your loop went back to people. Like how do I ultimately help use AI to help people achieve what their goal is too? And also I love the idea, I don't know if you guys got this too, about the collaborative goal setting. I think that's really, really cool. It's something novel that I would love to dig in deeper to.
Yeah.
But, okay, so let's take a question or two from the Twitter. Do you
Yeah.
have one already pulled up?
I did a second ago, but I think, do we want to ask about innovation? So we like we're texting each other with some ideas. So we're gonna ask one that from one of our brain children, and then we definitely want to take one from the audience. So all of you are doing really cool things in the AI and user experience and people spaces, regardless of what your job titles are. So I'm curious about, for all of you, what are you most excited about the future of machine learning? No pressure.
Everything, nothing?
Or you can think about like I'll broaden this a little bit. So you think about machine learning, but you can also think about what's the most interesting thing you see coming in the future of HCI or UX. And maybe it's an AI thing, maybe it's not, but I'd love to hear your takes.
I sort of already answered it. AI for social good is something I'm really invested in. So I hope that as our machine learning methods become more sophisticated, we are actually able to do inference over human experience towards this goal of actually making their lives better as opposed to doing other things.
That's fantastic.
I mean, I'll just quickly add that I guess my line of thinking is quite similar to Shiwali's in that, you know, when whether we're building products, services, whatever it may be, but what we're ultimately doing is trying to build a tool that enables people to do what they need to do in that moment. And it may not necessarily be about, you know, getting them to do a certain thing longer, but getting them to do it effectively and quickly and to the point, and so they can actually move on to live the rest of their lives. And I think, you know, technology, or rather machine learning, is there's potential for it to do that because it's an element of, you know, taking a lot of data, but also trying to enable. The most important thing is enabling it to bring in a human element and bring in human input into, I guess, letting them have input on what they want to see from these machine learning results is what I personally would like to see more of.
Yeah.
Any thoughts from you, Richelle?
I had to, it was like, I did a whole talk on it. So I guess,
creative activism.
Wouldn't it be awesome if these ethics are part of, part of the development, as part of the common thought of this is what we're designing with, this is who we're designing for, and I don't know if it's necessarily something that's automatically, that I see as part of the future, but definitely something I hope for, is an attention to all stakeholders that are involved when these systems are being deployed. And it's not just, us as designers, and then we have a client that we're working for, but it's also the people who this system makes a decision about. And if you have this person that this system makes a decision about, that person has a whole, universe around them as well. So, they have parents and kids, and I don't know, they volunteer at the pet shelter, and so all those all those are affected by whatever ripple effect comes through. And I think we should start seeing that stakeholders are larger than the people who are directly involved with making the system.
Yeah, I think that's so great. And also I loved that you all kind of touched on this too, but like, how do you design machine learning models that from the beginning you know that they're not going to be right? So how do you design with like thinking about that user feedback? Like, how are you going to get that along the way? And even like, maybe there are going to be different ethical considerations that come up, or maybe the model might be used in ways that you don't expect. So like, how do you then adapt and change to that, and like make sure you're designing knowing that that's going to happen rather than the golden path all the time?
Yeah.
I know we are a little bit over time, and I know some of us have a very far drive. So thank you all so much for coming down and staying out with us. I'm going to do our wrap-up question, if that's okay with you all, and they'll stick around if you have some more questions. But the one thing that I love to do is just make sure that everybody in the audience has one key takeaway that they can go back to their team, so excited, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, like 9:30 tomorrow morning, stand up, be like, oh my God, I saw the coolest thing. What one piece of advice or nugget of wisdom do you want to leave the audience with about the cool stuff that you're working on, any best practices that they should be thinking about?
I would hope for any upper management, hopefully listening, who knows, so any team leaders, any not just on the bottom of the chain of command, so anybody that's above that, look very critically at your organization and see if you're not just boasting diversity, but if you actually are diverse. Yep. And I feel like a lot of these efforts are, things that we are trying to do as employees, but I absolutely think that there's just certain things that we just don't have necessarily the power to do so. So I would hope that, have a critical look at your team and hire diverse. Yeah. Love it.
Oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to
talk.
Sorry. Something I guess I wanted to bring up is more around user experience research, in that in our practice here, we've actually found it super helpful to actually invite our stakeholders and a technical team on the field with us, for them to actually, whether they're sitting in a back room or actually in the room with us, being able to ask their questions based on their unique perspective and expertise, because we've actually found in our research it's been super helpful. They would come up with questions we probably never would have thought of otherwise. Yeah. And every time when we finish that session, they would come back to us like, I'm so glad I did that, because then they have much more direct insight and engagement with their potential customers, and that helps them tell a better story when they're going back to their management to try to persuade and convince them to move forward with a certain strategy or offering, whatever it is.
Yeah. Awesome. So I would like to stress that the AI view is necessarily an interdisciplinary view. Right? There's a tendency to think, hey, if my team is just composed of all the computational algorithmics people, we are going to do great AI. But that's not necessarily the case, right? So for the health behavior change project that we did, I was working with a physiotherapist who actually understood what people wanted and needed. Right. And through her, she said, well, the evaluation metrics for AI usually are how accurate your algorithm is, how fast it can compute. Right. But she said that those metrics don't even matter, right? Because when you are with people, especially with exercise, it's their safety that matters.
Right.
And so we sort of changed our evaluation strategy to think about how do we understand if exercises are safe and how do the algorithms understand the exercises are safe. So I don't think we could have done good AI research without having her being a core member of the team. So I feel like whenever managers and leaders are thinking about assembling an AI team or defining the AI agenda, they have to think about the interdisciplinary nature of AI instead of just focusing on the algorithmics, the data, and the computation for it.
Yeah, because ultimately you're making these AI systems a lot
For
of the times
for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you bring in those domain experts too to help guide and make sure you're building the right thing? Well, this has been fantastic. Oh my gosh. Can I just say like how excited I am that all of you stayed towards the end too?
Yeah.
It is late and we are down in South Bay. It's very far from San Francisco.
Stop saying it's the South Bay.
It
This is the center of the Silicon Valley.
Yeah, true. South Bay.
Just say the center of Silicon Valley. This is
You're right,
where
this is
it
where
originated
it is.
from.
We're very excited to be here.
Yes, exactly. But I wanted to thank our speakers for all of their time.
Thank you
and
so
their
much.
wisdom and knowledge.
And a- And a big thank you to Parc as well for having us.
Yes. Really good. And shout out to Mary Carroll who helped make this all possible and helped kick this off. And great job, ladies at UX and ML+UX.
Woo!
Yeah.
And thank you to all of you for coming tonight and for the fantastic questions that you're asking. I think everyone will be hanging around for a little bit.
Yep.
So definitely come up and have a chat.
Cool.
Thank you again.
Great.
Bye.
I'll